When I tell you guys, you did over $150,000 in revenue in 2022, how does that make you feel? How does that sound?
If someone were to come to me and actually say like, hey, I need you to step back from what you're doing, you're about to make 150,000 the next year. But not only can you make it, can you do it together? Y'all are going to do it together. Would you step back?
Yeah.
Like, nah, quit playing. Like, no, absolutely exciting. It's been amazing.
But that's beautiful. Just even knowing that the first year of us both stepping back from corporate work and being able to do that, that's beautiful.
Another on the road, but this time we got a husband-wife duo. We have the co-founders of EverCloud Signings. How are we doing, Garrick and Dipti?
Doing well, doing well,
very
sir.
well.
I think your guys' story is a very inspirational, and this frankly is a woman-led business, right? Majority of signing agents are women, but I don't think the husbands get enough credit, frankly, because I don't highlight them enough. But for every married couple, if someone's out and about, the husband's supporting, and so a lot of our audience has husbands behind them that don't get enough of that credit. So G, thank you. Your story is awesome. I can't wait to share it. But I appreciate you being here, G. And now you guys run EverCloud Signings together. 2022 is your guys' banner year. I think that's also inspirational. When I tell you guys, you did over $150,000 in revenue in 2022, how does that make you feel? How does that sound?
I actually haven't thought of it until you put it that way, right? But it's a sense of accomplishment because that was something that we probably would have made working at a 9-to-5 job, but not it just a different experience, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to take home as much or even expense things, but that's beautiful. Just even knowing that the first year of us both stepping back from corporate work and being able to do that, that's beautiful.
Yeah, G, let me ask you the same question, man. I mean, when I say that out loud, right? How does that feel about your guys' business doing, great revenue in its first year in business?
No, it's absolutely exciting and surprising as well too. I stay surprised because if someone were to come to me and actually say like, hey, I need you to step back from what you're doing, you're about to make 150,000 the next year, I'd be like, nah, quit playing. Like, quit playing. But not only can you make it, can you do it together? Y'all are going to do it together. Would you step back?
Yeah.
Like, nah, quit playing. Like, no, absolutely exciting. It's been amazing.
Man, I'm so proud of you, both you. I think I said enough. We had Dee on stage last year at the conference, so I think the LSS community knows her very well. But like I said, Garrick, I mean, I don't think they know you as well, and I don't think they know enough husbands behind the amazing women entrepreneurs that Loan Signing System Nation's all about. And so I love hearing the story of you, Garrick, supporting your wife, and I can't wait to share that. So I know Dee's seen a handful of these. I ask the same questions in all these conversations with amazing signing agents. So let's start with the same question I ask everybody. And take me back, like, how did we end up here? Like, take me back from the beginning. How did we end up being a signing agent, an entrepreneur, a business owner? So take me back and share your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Mark, for giving us the opportunity to be able to share a story and hopefully inspire the people that might be in the same boat or the same experience or wherever they are in their journey in life. So I'm originally from Fiji. I've been in the United States for 14 years. Come from the island, so it's very, very chill, very laid back. And so when you come to the United States, it's a big shocker, right? And it's always been my dream to come to the United States and live here and make money and opportunities, but I never knew how to do that, right, until I got here. And my very first job up until I decided to become a loan signing agent, I've always done corporate work, always worked for someone else. And I think it just Garrick has always helped me see that, or at least always called it out to say, hey, you're so much better than this. Ever since my first job, he would tell me like, you're better than this. And I'm like, dude, I just started this job.
It's been 2 weeks. Give me some time, man.
Exactly, right? Exactly. But, I'm so grateful for a husband and a spouse and a partner like Garrick because, he's pushed me. And sometimes I didn't like it. But I'm glad that he did do that because it helped me get out of my comfort zone and really be bold to take the next step. So, climbing the corporate ladder, move from different states because of his prior military background and then government contracting. We ended up landing in California and both had very good corporate jobs. But when the pandemic hit 2020, we both were remoting from home, so can't complain. Love the company I work for, great benefits, great team culture, but the work-life balance wasn't there, you know. And in 2020, I was pregnant with my daughter. And of course, we were remoting from home, I think, since March of 2020. And, you know, of course, as I'm getting more and more pregnant, it's not as easy and comfortable to be in meetings. So I led a team of account managers. So, you know, my day was filled with back to back meetings. So there were times I couldn't even eat on time. And so Garrett would slide me a food on plate, which was so hilarious. Now thinking about it, he was like, "Hey, I got you some breakfast. I got you some snack." And then just being able to take a bathroom break, you know, I think just got to the point where I was like, okay, what am I doing all this for? What am I doing here? You know, I am helping build my team. I'm helping build the company, the department, but what am I really doing for myself? And then, you know, and then the Garrick's words would always, like, you know, start chiming in my
Yeah, you
mind.
know, you said that they wouldn't even let you didn't have time to go to the bathroom. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember my wife when she was pregnant, she had to go to the bathroom every 30 seconds. And so it seems like literally not okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so, gee, let's jump to you, man. I mean, seeing your wife, you know, doing quote unquote living the American dream, right? She is an immigrant and she's, you know, working the corporate job, into her words, it's, you know, good paying corporate job, but you're sliding her food to eat. What are you thinking? What are you feeling as her spouse? And I mean, she's carrying your daughter. I mean, you got to be like sitting there all day, not being able to use a restroom can't be good for her. And so, what are thoughts you're having as a spouse, husband, father, etc.?
Yeah, for me, I was getting absolutely frustrated with the pattern of events because
Mm,
when it comes to someone like Dipti or anybody for that matter who just continues to pour and pour and pour and give and give and give, but get the same result, whether it's in pay, whether it's in appreciation or anything, needless to say, from somebody looking from the outside, especially me, you find different reasons to just start to get frustrated about it. And
mhm,
so that frustration ends up to become bickering between you two. You don't communicate that well
mm,
because you're not identifying what the root cause of the problem
mhm,
was. When we started realizing that the root cause of the problem was time, like where was being invested and spent, you slow down for a bit to realize, like, you know, at least for me, Dipti was giving way more than what she was receiving back for her family. I guess being a man and being a husband, you know, you have a complete responsibility to the person that you care for the
mm,
most. And what ends up happening is that you can get angry in two directions. Either you get angry in the wrong direction or the right direction. The wrong direction being is that you take it out on each other. And that's only adding more to
mhm,
her pain, her hurt, and the things that she had to go through just trying to you know, provide. Really, like, she's doing her part in the house. And then there's the right direction. It's about getting angry and then solving a problem.
mhm,
It's like, how do I go ahead and start encouraging and
mhm,
doing more with this anger to say we can make a change together?
mhm.
That's where um, you know, I really had to pick up my pants and say, you know what, are we actually going to do something about this or bicker about it? There was only those two choices. And
Yeah. So, D, let's flip it back to you in this story because, so you know, thank you for sharing that. By the way, G, and so you're working your tail off, right? It's like it's what you know, it's what you're supposed to do, and you know you have your husband saying, "Okay, do this, do that, let's do other things." You're not being very receptive in the beginning about it. Kind of start there. Like, why weren't you being so receptive about it? Was it a mindset that I'm just supposed to be working for corporate America? Kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more so a mindset and culturally how it was brought up, right? I come from a family where it's all about working hard at school, getting good grades, going to college, and then getting a great job. And
Mm.
so just you get institutionalized in that mindset, you know, and it takes a good while to break out of that.
You were like willing to like not go to the bathroom. You're willing to have your husband slide food into you. And again, and I say that because I think there's a lot of people have this mentality of like, this is supposed to be the way. No one should be living like that. Again, like, you know, my wife, when she was pregnant, was one of those difficult times, right? And she didn't have an easy pregnancy, quote unquote. And like, I couldn't imagine being Garrick and like seeing you have to hold the restroom. Like that would get me so infuriated. And so,
Yeah.
but in your mind, you're just like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And that's sad and it's wrong, frankly, And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, no, I think it like I said, just the home and the culture that I was raised in, you be a very diligent worker and
mhm,
employee, but you just don't think outside the box out of that, and
right.
people can go in the blue in the face sometimes saying that. And I think, and I appreciate Garrick a lot for this, because, by this time we've been married for almost 10 years, 10 or 11 years by that time frame, 11 years. And so, he's been constantly feeding me that, but I can only imagine his frustration with me, because, he continues to see me go through that. But I
Mhm,
think being
No, I
pregnant.
don't think it was. I don't mean. I want to cut you off because I don't think it's frustration with you. When people, what happens with someone like Dipti, and this could be anybody out there, no one at work is going to stop you to say you're doing such a fantastic job. Take a break. Like you're
right.
doing such a fantastic job. Like we need you to slow down. They continue to ask you for more and more, and you become a victim of your own success.
Mhm,
And I feel like that becomes the most frustrating thing to see, is that you see a precious resource or a precious person pour themselves into something that seems bottomless at
right,
times. And I'm not saying that the job was bottomless.
right.
It's just that change doesn't come fast enough for all of the intensity that you're putting up forward. So you get frustrated, you get angry, and you start to I think what ends up happening is that your conversations about what you do on a day-to-day basis start to become unhealthy, and you look for alternatives to where you need something healthier by that time.
Right. I hear a husband who really cares, right? And so, you seeing it was an unhealthy lifestyle and you knew that she needed to do something healthy, not just for the family. Like you said, it was a good income, but the income was less important than her health.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think is beautiful of, and again, there's so many amazing men of LSS that don't get the credit of the support. And I love how you did it way before even LSS was around, like Dee said. And so, um, let's keep telling the story. So, D, take me to the moment. Like, so he's telling you, you got to change, you got to change. Why weren't you making the change? Like, was a lack of belief in yourself, was it just being institutionalized, to use your words? Like, kind of speak to someone else out there right now. Like, what feelings were you going through every single time? He's like, babe, you got to change. You got to do something different. Like, this is not healthy. Why weren't you so willing to make that kind of change, even though he was suggesting it?
I think one is being institutionalized in, the mindset. So the mindset change wasn't just there until it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, just the confidence, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I can, just the belief in yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I know I have somebody like Garrick that, such an amazing partner, amazing husband that's been pouring that into me. But sometimes they sound like a broken record,
Yeah.
right? Eventually at one point. And I think sometimes it just takes something to snap to really like put that focus in front of you. And I think one of the things that always resonated that Garrick always said was like, your job always gets the best of you and we get the leftovers. And it never sat well with me. It never did. And so I think I've always heard him say that, time and time again over the years. But eventually, when I did see what was happening and it wasn't going to slow down, even after I had my daughter and come back, I'm just like, same question, what am I doing? So, just being institutionalized, lack of confidence in myself and belief.
I don't think you're the only, entrepreneur that kind of, lacks this belief in yourself. What kind of was the last straw for that you kind of to make the decision, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to be a signing agent? Was it this moment of just super confidence, or was it a moment of like, I was tired of being tired?
I think it was the latter one, tired of being tired. I'm spending days in meetings. I'm
Mhm.
looking at what's projected for the next upcoming quarter and how it's gonna happen, even after my maternity leave, and
Right.
I'm like, nothing's gonna change at work.
Right.
The lot work-life balance is probably, if anything, is going to get even more. And when we had our first child, he's almost 8 now. He's been to daycare since he was 2 months old. And then, just thinking of the same thing about my daughter, it just wasn't sitting
Yeah.
well. So it was like, okay, it's either I sit here and continue to deal with this or take this opportunity and do something with it. Like, just take that leap of faith.
Yeah, and I asked you to share that because I think sometimes people feel like entrepreneurs have all this confidence before they take the leap, right? These signing agents must be full of just pizzazz and full of confidence. Sometimes you just do it scared, right? And you just do it until you become confident. And I thank you for the vulnerability because, you know, like I said, you're not the only person who's probably scared to leave their job or scared to go against their culture or what they've done. But there was a moment where, you know, you realize that, you know, when your husband says your job gets the best of you and we get the leftovers, like, I can see how that hurt and how the change had to come. So, I mean, G, at this point, you know, she's like, all right, I get it. I got to make a change. She becomes a signing agent, right? Talk about the beginning part of your journey of being a signing agent. Cause you know, you were watching a 2-month-old while she's out there signing paperwork. And I think that's the true definition of a team, right? Like, or a true definition of a supportive husband. It wasn't just you telling her to do a change and do this, do that. It's like, look, I'm going to support this change. So kind of talk about the beginning days of her business and frankly, how proud you were of her.
Oh yeah. So first off, I'll say first and foremost, I'm extremely proud of the work that she actually does. Anything that Dipti touches becomes gold if she's excited about it. And really that's the case with her. So when she first started off, it was rough. Now this is where I'm probably going to embarrass her a little bit. Like when it comes to organization, Dipti will just do things and just say, I believe in it, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go. And she leaves little bits and pieces left behind of like, oh,
by the way, don't feel bad because that is a true entrepreneur.
Yeah.
The details are in the dust, but we just reached the goal. So you're not alone, girl. My wife would say the same thing. If you can see my office right now, you'd be like, all right, we on the same page.
You know, it's beautiful because I agree with you. That's what I see. That's what I've always wanted to see out of her. Like, hey, apply that same energy to going out for a goal, for your family, for something that is big. And so when she would do that, I can't say that I wasn't putting my foot in my own mouth, saying like, oh, okay, now I'm stuck with a 2-year-old, or excuse me, a 2-month-old. And now I'm out of my element. I'm left with the baby, and now I'm getting frustrated, and there's dinner, and there's all this other X, Y, and Z. And as much as I'd like to make myself seem tough, I felt real small during that moment. But I understood the process. And I actually said, you know, the only thing I could honestly do is just try to stay patient with what was to come, because it's a hard pill to swallow when you're watching someone that you love go out late, make those sacrifices. Like it takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of
well, it takes a lot of support, dude.
Yes,
and that's why you're amazing. And you know, thank you on the behalf of her. Also, I mean, as her mentor, it really does take a support that you don't see on the outside. And so I had no idea you're sitting there with the 2-month-old and a 4-year-old or whatever the age was of your oldest at the time, cooking dinner, like you said. And I've had a 2-month-old, so I know the routines of that as well. So what I love about this story is it's just a beautiful story of a couple, of a husband just supporting her wife, his wife, excuse me. And like you said, everything that she touches turns to gold. And the fact that you saw that before she saw that, I think again is beautiful. And she had a moment of like, oh, you know, and so, I say thank you, man. You know what I mean? And so, because it's support of you that's made her, you know, no one could do it alone. Like everyone knows my wife, I could not have built loan signing systems without my wife. There's zero question about it. And so the support of our spouse is usually the success of an entrepreneur. So I'm glad that you're on here. To me, the story is about a husband seeing something the wife didn't see in herself. And sometimes we all need that cheerleader and someone who's to motivate, to inspire us. And you guys have found each other for that. So that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, absolutely. 1000% proud of her. I mean, when it comes to anything that she commits herself to, I just, you know, we live a pretty peaceful life knowing that as long as we're setting our sights out to doing something together, and when we're not together, we still have the same focus. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Let me tell you, he's probably not expressing it the way I think he can express it, but I think he has his proudest moment now that we're on the same page being entrepreneurs. I think that was always a conflict with us because, you know, I was in the worker mentality and he was always business minded, entrepreneurial. But now finally, for the first time, you know, we're on the same page.
I want to say that I'm proud of her because there's authentic joy versus like fabricated joy.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to a corporate environment, people love you. They do well. They know that what you touch turns to gold and everything. And then when you're looking from the outside, it's just like, you don't know what you're missing until
Yeah.
like you just touch it over
Yeah.
here. And now she's just she has to remind me to think like an entrepreneur because
Oh, that's the
there's so much she has to pour
best.
belief into me. And it's just like, wow,
It's coming
like
full circle, right? That's what
yes,
makes it beautiful. I mean,
it,
honestly,
yeah,
this is such a cool story. Again, thank you, Garrick, for jumping on, because there's probably a ton of these stories that we don't tell in loan signing system, but sitting with the 2-month-old and bottle feeding and changing diapers, and at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., who knows what hours that signing
10,
agents
10
work.
p.m., 11
That's
p.m.,
right.
brother.
That's
Like
my
it gets
point. You
late.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
And you're willing to do it to help see your wife build something for her, um, is absolutely beautiful, because I don't think every spouse would do that. And so I think the fact that you supported her and you wanted her to be successful, and you weren't scared that her success would maybe overcome whatever your version of success is true selflessness. And so thank you for that. And thank you for allowing me to be the vehicle to share this story, because like I said, I think your story is one of many in our community. So, all right, cool. I was about to cry right there because this thing's so beautiful. Gee, I honestly, dude, like, appreciate you, man. I think it takes a strong man to really share what you just said, right? And I want to support her. I want her to see her success be bigger than mine. And I don't think a lot of men would outwardly say that. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And now you guys are building this together. It's to the moon, baby.
that's right.
Marky actually called me. I think it was very early on when I started. Maybe in the second month, I was out and it was almost 11:45 at almost midnight. And he calls me like, "Hey, are you okay?" I just had a lot of back to backs. I was like one after the other one. But luckily, the last one I set it to where it was very close to my house. But he called me to say, "Hey, are you okay? I just want to make sure." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm almost done. I'll be home
I
soon."
think the biggest thing is that not all signings happen at night, but as long as you knew that it was a phase in the building process, I think that's what helped like
Right.
get over the fact
Yeah.
that this isn't forever going
Right.
out late or anything. This is just like she needs to secure business.
Yep.
I understand how it goes, and let's just
And
take
now
it
you
from
guys have a full blown signing service, and she's
there.
not working those midnights anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful thing. So let's switch gears and talk about your journey a little bit. Okay. Income journey. So you were one of my students who came in during the pandemic. Look, and the truth of the matter is life was great, right? During the pandemic. But you had your banner year in 2022, right? Which was the year of the correction. And so, I kind of want to talk about that, right? These on the roads are about mindset more than anything else. And so, 2021, you're doing these signings until midnight, like business is crazy. And then 2022 hits, rates go up, current clients aren't giving you as much, et cetera, et cetera. So talk me through that, right? So 2022 hits, you're reading like, oh my gosh, there's no business for anybody. Meanwhile, you're killing it. Why didn't you panic? Why didn't you give up? Why didn't you look at Garrick and be like, this is done. It was a great ride when it happens. Why didn't that happen?
I think the biggest thing was, how you always say when your why is so big, your how becomes easy. So for me, it was, okay, if I don't make this work, I'm going to have to look for a job. Do I really want to go back to a 9-to-5 job, right?
But what you're really saying is, do I want to go back and feeling unappreciated?
Unappreciated, right? Yeah. And then two is like, I don't give up. I don't give up. If I started something, failure is not an option.
Right.
It's not. And Gary can speak probably out loudly for me too, because I always look at him like failure is not an option. Like we got to do this. What else are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I think that's what kept me going is like, hey, you know what? It just becomes white noise after a while. If you can just keep your focus and shut out all the noise that is just like, oh, it's slow, it's that. I think sometimes it is what you're going to get out of it, what you put into it too, right? So that drive to just keep going can't stop.
I hope everyone rewinds that, right? I mean, what you said was a couple things pointing. You got to block out the white noise, like at some point. And when your why is big, the how is easy, right? I mean, I don't think people it's almost a cliche now because everyone says it.
Yeah.
When you really do it is when you really inspires you to work harder, right? Like you weren't going to, like you just shared earlier in this conversation, like your 8-year-old was raised by daycare, right? And you were not going to let that happen to your second child. And so, but when you really put that at your forefront, then that creates everything behind it, which is your effort. And what you said towards the latter part of that was you get what you put in. And so you don't give up. So speaking of don't give up, What actions did you take during the downturn of business that kept you to do a banner year in 2022?
Right. So I doubled down my efforts on following up. I think just showing up, whether it was just dropping by once a week, sending emails, text messages. Every Monday, I would just connect with all my direct folks that I had a text cell phone number and just say, hey, I'm available. My schedule's pretty open. Let me know what I can. So just think top of mind, I think was very, very important during that time frame, because a lot of people weren't getting the volume that they originally were. But then the other piece is that if you master your craft, people will always remember you. Especially in the notary field, our job is just that important, because if we make one simple mistake but it delays funding, people will always remember that. Your title escrow office is going to remember that. So I think that mastering your crafting was very important. But then with that being said, because of the relationships you build along the way, you just keep the follow-up. And I think I was following up like crazy. Like I had a system. Every Monday I would send out emails. I would send out text messages, just show up and just check in with them. Like, hey, how's it going? Or have conversations. I think that was very important.
I have to add to that. I
Yeah.
think just going a little bit deeper about it is just never changing the language.
Mm.
The language was really important to just say, we got this, like, we got to keep going. Like,
Yeah.
Like when new language is being introduced, you have to be very cognizant of, is this good new language or is it bad new language?
God, I
Okay.
love
So,
it.
so,
Yeah.
what she's referring to as white noise, like there's a lot of bad language out there, a
Mhm.
lot of bad talk, a lot of like, gloom and doom.
Mhm.
And in our house and with our efforts, we just said, what's the good language that we're keeping in? Like if it ain't
Mm.
adding to, it's taken away.
The first thing I love what you said, and is you double your efforts, double down on your efforts. A lot of people, the people got so used to just signings come from the sky during
Yeah.
2021 that they, like, what, I got to work. And not only did you get back to work, you doubled your efforts, right? And that's the mindset that I want to share with everybody. It's not like you didn't do 150,000 by accident. It was you're doubling your efforts. You were doing emails and follow-ups and text messages. And I love when you said mastering your craft, because I think now you're speaking as a signing service owner, where it's like, you notice that there's a lot of notaries who don't master their craft. And then they wonder why they're not busier. And it's because you didn't take the time to master your craft. When we were so busy, we didn't have time necessarily to master the craft, but you strategically use the downtime to get better at your craft. And then to G's point, where, self-talk is real, right? It's I got tattooed on my arm, thoughts are things, because I remind myself is like, what you think is what happens. And to your point, like, and I love that we have each other to remind each other of like, hey, let's not introduce bad language. And so I love that you said, be careful of the language. And I almost take that one step further of like, just be careful of the conversations you're having, even if it's not with someone else, just yourself. And so, Garrick, I think that was an unbelievable piece of advice. And I know you came into the business in 2022, so let's talk about that, right? So D is super successful as an individual signing agent. She comes to you and she's like, all right, babe, I think it's time to start a signing service. You had a job, and so you kind of gave up everything to start the family business. Talk about why, and talk about like why you chose to do that in the middle of the correction.
Well, there's a couple things. One, if you look Dipti in her eyes and you see that she's fired up about something and she's ready to go, she's going to give it 1,000% and it's worth it. So when she came and she said, like, this is the time, I at the time had a very good job, was being offered multiple positions and more money and everything, but it definitely didn't outweigh Dipti coming to me and saying, this is it's go time. It's go time now.
Uh-huh.
The other thing was that I think once we saw the opportunity of scalability, and not only just like in the local area but nationwide, it just blows the lid off of like what you could ever potentially make doing just the 9 to 5 work. And so like what I like to tell people is be the and not the it. Like don't just say that like I'm at my job and that's it. Like what could we do to add more to our lives? And this was just another step along with her notary work as well too. It complemented very well. Basically, it came to the point where, people loved her and what she was doing. So it makes a lot of busy work for her personally. So then it was kind of like the next step in evolution for the next step in the journey for that success, which is great, which is very great.
And just to add, I think to that too, Mark, again, where we talk about mindset, right? We started our signing service of March of 2022, right when the rates started going up, and then the signing volume started going down, right? So if I had to tell myself like, oh, maybe this is not the time to start, I could have easily talked myself out of that, right?
Wow.
But I think we were just like, no, like, let's do it. You're not gonna know until you do it.
Right.
You know, you're not gonna know until you try something. And I think that's like getting out of your own head and getting out of your own way is very important.
Yeah. You know, I smiled there for like 30 seconds straight when you said all she had to do was look me in the eye. Like,
It's the truth. It's the facts. It's the
I
facts.
know, and it's beautiful. I love that you're sharing this because I think it's super authentic.
It was just like when the odds are against us, and I saw that, it was just like the answers are revealed that, like, I can't even say, like, looking back now, like, what was I thinking? No, but I mean, it's just that's what it was. I don't want to get like any credit for that. Like, I think it has more so to do that once she discovered that there were things about her that just really she could double down on and take a hold of. I think the rest is history. I can't get credit for that. Like, there are a lot of people who are paralyzed by things, and I think she didn't allow paralysis and fear to set in because of the outside chatter, to just say, hey, now's the time, and that's her. That's not me, brother. That's a lot of
No,
her.
credit for the infrastructure and the organization piece. He is right about that. I could not have successfully done it without him.
Well, it's a big love fest, and I love it,
Yeah.
man. I signed me up for it. But
Uh-huh.
like I said, dude, I think it's beautiful, the support that you have for her, and like I said, this is a very woman-led business, and I don't shy from it. 75% of LSS Nation is female, but and the ones that are married or have partners need this support. And dude, you are like a pillar. And so it's really cool to see, and even cooler that you're sharing it. And thank you again for being on here. So this is going a different direction than most of these that I do, but I think it's frankly a beautiful thing. So let's jump to the one piece of advice. And so, Garrick, you now run the signing service with D. So I want you both to answer this question from two different perspectives. So, I always ask successful signing agents to give one piece of advice. So let's start with you, Dipti. You've built this business from scratch, 3 years now. If someone asked you for one piece of advice, nothing else, what would that one piece of advice be to help someone grow their business?
I believe it's very important who you associate with. Your association is key. If you surround yourself with people that are constantly building, encouraging, just breaking through things, it's automatically going to help you change your mindset. And I think that was very important for me, coming from a corporate world where, it's like an office mindset. Now, when I go back and talk to some of my ex-coworkers and stuff, I am so different than where they are, like how they think and process things. And it saddens me because I want to be able to see them do the same thing. But, with some people it's meant for, and maybe others not so much. But that association is key. Who you surround yourself, what you listen to, what you fill your mind with, your top, like you say, like your top 5 people that you're with is who you're going to be like.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, beautiful piece of advice. And I think you guys are like the 75th interview. I don't think anyone said that is my point yet. And I think the most underrated skill for a successful entrepreneur is getting their circle down to people who raise them up. I think it's the most overlooked part of building a successful business. I think people hold on to people just because they've known them for 20 years versus like, are we having conversations that make me smarter? Are we uplifting each other? Are we talking about the last UFC fight? Or are we talking about what's going on with Silicon Valley Bank? And if you can get the conversations around where your goals are headed, it changes everything. And so I'm glad you brought that. I don't think anyone's mentioned your circles, and it's the most underrated thing people talk about. People talk about work ethic and people talk about this, but your circle, because like you said, like to use Garrick's point of the word language, right? They're giving you language to speak. Yeah. And so if you're not careful around the language you're hearing from other people, that can easily bring you down. Or if you're not hearing language on how to up level, it's only going to do. And so it is sad when you see some of your older friends who are still having the same conversations. But, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody, right? It's not for the faint of heart. And sometimes it just is what it is. And our job is just to be like, you didn't get an enemy, but I just got to make a new friend. And I think people aren't okay with that saying, just because you move on from someone doesn't mean that you don't like them, or it doesn't mean you can't hug them and have a 20-minute conversation next time you see them at Starbucks in
Yeah.
6 months. It just
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you need to have a conversation every day with them, because who you fill your brain up is very, very important. So great piece of advice, man. And
And
I
you have
think
to be willing to accept that, when you are going
yes,
to lose some of those folks, you have to be willing to accept that. Because if you want to be better, move on to bigger things, just have your explosion, you have to be willing to be okay with that. And it's not easy.
and I called it an undervalued skill because it is a skill. Like I said, it's not easy to kind of move on from people, right? And it's like
Yeah.
we have this weird cultural belief that just because someone's been in our life for 30 years that we can't move on from them, right? And so, I believe personally that friends kind of are here for seasons, right? There's
Yeah.
somebody supposed to be in our 20s and be in our 30s and be in our 40s, or be a friend in my corporate days versus my entrepreneurship days. And if you see friends as, kind of a fluid moment, I think it actually becomes a little bit easier to navigate life and becomes less stressful and ultimately brings you to a different level. So great conversation. Gee, let's go to you. From someone who owns and runs a signing service, someone who hires signing agents, every day. What piece of advice would you give a signing agent on how to help their business? Because you probably see the good and bad habits of so many notaries from across the country. So what would your advice be?
Absolutely. I think the number one that I would always give, it'll probably remain throughout time, is just be emotionally purposeful in the way that you do business. And what I mean by that is that I think there's a lot of self-doubt even once you become a notary, that you're not a leader in some capacity. When you're actually sitting down at the signing table, you are leading people to their next part in their journey in life. And sometimes, lots of the times I've seen, notaries become very transactional and they lack emotion in why they're even there to begin with. God lined you up to do something while you were there. Make it a good transaction, make it very personal, because you're dealing with people at that point. Like, let's not even talk about whether it was a loan signing or anything. You're personally in somebody's home, business, or even sitting down with them on a personal level. And so that's a solid piece of advice that I always say differentiates the successful signing agent from the one that's just there to make money.
Well, dude, I've been training signing agents for 7 years, and I love what you just said there. And you're right. I don't think enough notaries realize they're leaders. When you realize that, when you're a leader, that you can take charge. And it's funny because I don't even know if it's a fault of their own that they don't take charge, just because they really weren't taught leadership. That changes after today, by the way. Because you're so right. A great piece of advice from a signing service owner. That's why I love these interviews. And if people can just accept that they're a leader, I think they could take control of the signing more. They could be more emotionally invested. Some of them, I bet, to your point, are not emotionally invested because they feel like almost they're intrusive on something versus being purposely part of it. Right. And I think that's what you're saying. And so it's interesting. I never thought about that dynamic, but it's a great piece of advice: is remember or realize you are a leader. You're there for a reason. You're there for a purpose. You got hired to do a job. Believe in yourself. And sometimes you do got to take charge and leadership. And frankly, people want to be led, like they're like, look, I've never seen these mortgage paperwork before. Like, lead me. Like, they're looking. And sometimes I think there might be some imposter syndrome by the notary. But I love your piece of advice. Is like, you're supposed to be there. You're a leader. And when you believe in that, it takes a little bit easier to take charge. I'm going to create a module in the course called leadership. So thank you. And I will give you credit for it. But no, you're right. And I never thought about it like that. And people, notary specifically, need to realize, like, you're here for a reason, man. You're worthy. You're deserving. Man, great conversation, guys. Give it up for the good ones. Let's go. All right. So let's segue into the last question. I want people to feel not alone. And so has there been any self-doubt moments on your journey to help someone else not feel alone in their self-doubt? Because like you said in the very beginning of this conversation, like, you did it scared. Like, it wasn't that you became confident, I'm going to be a notary. You made a decision, like, I'm going to do it scared. And so was another specific moment of self-doubt that you can maybe help walk someone through?
You know how I say we always get in our own head and in our own way. So one of the things that, if you want to scale your signing business to the next level, is going direct, right? And just the thought of walking into a title office, like, just telling them, like, hey, I'm a notary public, it's simple, right? But I don't know how many times I've made excuses. Oh, they might already have like a set of notaries they have. Oh, they might be out for lunch. Or it's just all kinds of excuses. And then you know what I had to do? And this is where I say association is so important, because it's always been plugged into the LSS community, the trainings, and something that you can consistently hear throughout, whether it's you saying it or other folks that are training, is like, just go do it, right? Don't talk yourself out of it. Just go take that step and do it. And I had to check myself. I had to check my thoughts and be like, you know what? What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right? What's the worst that's going to happen? They're just going to tell me no. And I think once you can answer that question and,
Yep.
by yourself, okay,
Yep.
what's the worst that's going to happen? Everything just like dissolves. And you're like, what was I so nervous and worried about?
So take me back to the first time you marketed, right? And I bet there's a good story there somewhere. The reason I want you to share that is because there's definitely a belief out there that every signing agent goes direct is full of confidence. Every signing agent goes in there, just kicks down the door, says the script fallacy, and then gets 19 signings, when it's really a journey of growth.
I actually have a perfect one, because this is truly my first direct. So I started March of 2022, second half of March. And then May 1st, sometime in May, I had my first direct. So it just happened so that I got a signing through SnapDocs for a Old Republic in Tracy, but they wanted me to drop the documents off at the sister office here where I'm located, so that they could courier the documents in time. So I'm like, absolutely. But I wasn't ready to go market, right? But the opportunity just presented itself. And I'm one of those, I'm just like, it's here. Why can't I just introduce myself? I'm going to go drop the documents. It's either I chickened out and just dropped the documents and just ran off, or two, I did something about it. So I don't know if I called you that day, but I was like, okay, let me go get some Starbucks gift cards and, put them in there, right? And put my business card. And I went with the packages. It was 2 different packages and 1 signer. And I went and dropped it, and I introduced myself, and happened to be a gentleman that was there. I don't think he was there for long, but he was there, and he was an escrow officer. Sure enough, he called me for a signing that same week, because I introduced myself. Now check this out. When I did his signing, I made a lot of mistakes. That was my first purchase. I was used to refis by this time, right? So the purchase, I was like, I had to call him multiple times. I missed filling out something. So he called me back the next day. I said, hey, whatever you need, I'll go fix it. It happened to be, funny enough, a lady that worked with me at my previous job in a different department that I did the signing for. So we were cool there. But let me tell you, I was so discouraged after that. I was like, it took me almost a month, Mark, to say, you know what, let me find this courage, pick myself, and go back. Like, what's the worst, right? And guess what? I called the office back to ask for the same escrow officer, and he's no longer there. Because in my head all this time, I'm saying, oh man, you must have told the whole office about it. They're not going to use me. No one knew. And guess what? I landed the biggest client from that office that is still my number 1 client till today. And she is the biggest supporter of what I do.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that story is cool for a few reasons. Hey, thank you for being vulnerable to share that you've made mistakes, right? I think a lot of new people go, oh my gosh, what happens when I make mistakes? I'm never gonna get business again. Well, you got your biggest client after a mistake, right? And so I appreciate the vulnerability, because business is about learning, right? When you win, you win. When you lose, you learn. And so as long as you can learn from some of those mistakes, I think there's this axiom that like, oh, if I make a mistake, I'll never get business again. You just straight up said, my biggest client came after making numerous mistakes. So thank you for sharing that part of your story. And then again, thank you for sharing the idea that like, you can get nervous and that's okay. What's not okay is not doing it scared. And that's what's not okay. And I think that's what differentiates the successful signing agent, the non-successful signing agent. The successful signing agents get scared. They just do it scared. And that's what you're saying is like, you can do it. It's all a learning curve. Let me kind of wrap up with this. If there's anybody out there, D, lacking confidence, if you can build this business, do you think anyone can build this business?
I 100% believe so. As long as you can believe in yourself that you can do this. Whether the systems, whether the process, like what he said, logical, just throw logic out the window for a moment and just step out in faith and believe. I believe anyone can do this.
That's a perfect way to end it. Step out on faith and believe. And I think that's that's the entire conversation day wrapped up in a nutshell, is when you're able to step out on faith. Faith is by definition something you can't see. But if you believe in yourself enough, then you will land on something. And that is unbelievable. So, good ones. Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
Thank
You
you,
know, I
sir.
love you both. Thank you. I mean, D, you were on stage last year, crushing at a conference. So, from bottom of my heart, I appreciate you both. And what a great conversation. And I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
Mark.
Mark.
Thanks.